All right, hold up, because it's preparing. It's setting up. Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. My name is Jacque Crockford, and I am the Senior Product Manager at the American Council on Exercise. I'm so glad that you could join us here today on the ACE Fitness Facebook page for our live discussion with Lindsey Rainwater and Megan Gamble. Say hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hi.
So I'm going to introduce these powerhouse women here in just a second. Hopefully you all are joining us live today. We have a great discussion planned with these two wonderful ladies. We're going to be talking about women in the fitness industry, representation, challenges that we face as women, and how to help each other, lift each other up, and other ways that we can help support the fitness industry in supporting us as women in this industry that's always changing, as we know. So, Megan, I'm going to start with you because we've been friends for I don't even know how long. It's
too
been
long.
too long, so long. Megan Gamble and I grew up together in the small town of Hutchinson, Kansas, and have reconnected and come back full circle in the fitness industry. Megan is a certified PT and GFI with ACE, and she's also the owner of PowerFit Bootcamp out of Palm Beach, Florida. So Megan, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
And also joining us, Lindsey Rainwater, joining us from Colorado. So we're all spread out here as I'm hosting here today from San Diego, California. Lindsey is joining us from Colorado. She is the founder and CEO of WIFA, the Women in Fitness Association. So Lindsey, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
We are going to, like I said, be talking with both of these women, and Megan and I had this conversation a little bit earlier about how we're all approximately the same age. We won't talk about what that exactly is, but we've had such different experiences and worked in different areas of the fitness industry. And so I think the three of us together really just have this nice lens for which we can talk about our experiences in the fitness industry and, explain and help other people understand, if they're coming up in this ever-changing world of fitness, what they can do to be successful here. So Lindsey, I'm going to start with you. Just tell us a little bit about sort of your experience in the fitness industry and where you got to where you are, which again, as the founder and CEO of WIFA, a great organization here. So let's hear a little bit about your path in the fitness industry.
Oh, thank you, Jacque. And I was mentally preparing for this morning, and I was actually listening to a podcast, and the thing that was on my heart more than anything is how powerful it is for us to storytell in environments like this, so that others can feel seen and heard through our vulnerability when we step into this space. And so thank you, ACE, for providing an opportunity for women in fitness to have a voice on these important topics, because sometimes it can be as simple as getting permission from another vulnerable individual to have a vulnerable conversation, and it can unlock the whole next chapter of your career. Mm-hmm. And so that's first and foremost. I think it's so cool that we get to have these kinds of conversations. And kind of how I got where I am right now was a series of dot connections, like it is for a lot of us. I grew up a child athlete. I was a figure skater, and all kinds of, I'm sure if you were an athlete as a kid or were in sports in high school, there's a certain level of discipline that comes with laying out your clothes the night before, making sure your lunch is packed. I know for me, I had a on-ice practice session, and then I had a style lesson and a ballet lesson and aerobics all before noon. And so there was a lot that went into packing that bag the night before, which also informs the way I prep for a week today as a CEO. And so it's really cool how one experience informs the other. I got a chance to work in health clubs, both women's only health clubs in high school, My first job had nothing to do with fitness. I cleaned a boat shop in Colorado. So in landlocked Colorado, I cleaned a boat shop, but one thing kind of informs the next. And so I worked in health clubs in high school and then YMCAs, and got the chance to work directly in membership. And so selling memberships was a lot of my foundational fitness industry work experience. And then while I was in college, I actually worked for Starbucks Coffee, which was a big transition out of fitness. But what I learned in those roles prepared me so much for what I'm doing today, because they really teach you to run your own business. You know, everything about that box is yours to run. And so as a 21-year-old, I was hiring and firing and managed my P&L and my expenses and everything. I got a chance to work for, after that, brands like Peak Pilates, Spinning, Les Mills, and I spent about 5 to 6 years in my mid to late 20s working directly with health clubs, but also instructors on the education side. And so my job was to distribute education to the health clubs. And so I would sit down with a health club operator and talk about programs like Body Pump or Body Combat, and help them train instructors and bring programming like that to their clubs. And then after doing that for a while, I ended up consulting on my own and working on business strategy and working with organizations that sold equipment and doing a lot of business development support. While I was in that role, I started a family with my husband, and I was pregnant with my first son, and I was at a conference, and I really wanted to network or talk to, just have an open conversation with other women about what it was like to run a business and be a mom. Because I had my my career, I was in my mid to late 30s when I had my first child. So I really didn't have a blueprint or a lot of women in my life that were moms. And I started really looking around, and I was like, wow, we don't have anywhere where women gather to support each other, even just on basic topics like, how do you breastfeed in between conference calls? And, no offense, male mentors, but they didn't have context for the conversation. So my personal desire to get women together in a room and help one another really fueled what started WIFA. And it's grown into this incredible environment where we can champion one another and collaborate. And the entire heart center of WIFA is to get as many women as we can in a room, a virtual room, and say, great, you help her, let's make our careers work faster. And I'm so, so grateful to say that in the last year, I've gotten the chance to turn my 100% of my focus to WIFA. And I'm not doing any consulting to clubs or anything like that right now. I'm totally focused on growing WIFA as a CEO. And that's kind of a little sprinkling of my career along the way. I've taught spinning, I've taught a lot of classes as well, but that's kind of the overview.
That's great. I love that. Like I said, I think because the three of us have had such different paths, and yours have covered sort of the business side of sort of the fitness industry, that I think Megan, who I'm going to come to next, she has such a different perspective from the client side and her own fitness journey as well. So Lindsey, thank you for that. And Megan, let's hear a little bit about your experience in the fitness industry. I know it started a little bit differently.
Yes, it definitely started a little bit differently for me. As you know, I was also a child athlete. We played on basketball teams and track teams together. And
yep.
In college, I kind of changed gears. I actually have a background in chemistry. I switched up, and it was like I had to make a choice. Trying to be a college athlete and do laboratory classes kind of got a little difficult. So I chose chemistry, and I went that route, kind of left fitness altogether. Got my degree, bachelor's in science in chemistry with an emphasis in forensic science, went into that field wholeheartedly. And I've been a chemist for a while. I'm not going to say how long. And currently I am still a full-time chemist. I hit a rough patch in my late 20s, went through some depression, actually lost a child, and went into deep, deep depression and gained quite a bit of weight. I tipped out at 220 at my biggest, and decided at one point to kind of changed my life around. I moved away from Kansas, and I happened to run into a lab that was very fitness oriented. The owners of that lab actually sponsored their chemists to do triathlons and Ironmans, and they were very big into the fitness community. So I fell in with coworkers that were big into that, and started running up mountains in Atlanta, Georgia, Stone Mountain, Kennesaw Mountain. Well, I wouldn't say running. It was more of a slow jog, maybe a stumble. But that was my start back into fitness. And it was my way to kind of take my power back. I was intimidated when I did get back into the gym as far as hitting the weights. Even though I was an athlete, I knew what I needed to do, but I was intimidated because it had been so long since I had done any kind of fitness. So I actually reached out when I moved out to Florida to a personal trainer at LA Fitness, and hired a personal trainer and was able to get back into the weight room. And that's where the journey really, really started to take off. I started lifting, started losing weight, started toning up, and it got to a point where people in the gym started asking me for help. Women started asking me for help because there weren't a lot of female trainers, and they were intimidated just like me about hitting the weights. So at that point, I decided to go ahead and get ACE certified as a group fitness instructor first, and started doing classes and working for LA Fitness. And once those classes picked up, once again, people asked me for personal training. And I felt like for me to have the correct certification and the correct knowledge, I needed to go ahead and take on another certification. And I went ahead and got personal trainer certified at that point, and started taking on personal training clients. But I also work with a lot of different trainers. I have over the years. That's what's pushed me to the next level, to the point where I also now bodybuild. I've taken it to the extreme. I went from one avenue all into another. Bodybuilding is more of an extreme sport, but I also am a bodybuilding coach, and just kind of help people. I want to show people that it can be done, so to say. And that's kind of how I fell into it, kind of trying to take my power back through fitness.
Love it. So I think from a fitness standpoint and sort of the areas of the industry, like I said, that we've all worked in, as Megan said, I was an athlete as well. I was an athlete in college and then transitioned into the long distance sport, and I do endurance sports now and all kinds of weird stuff. So, we've had these different experiences, and now obviously working with ACE, I work on the education side of the fitness industry. We've had all of these different viewpoints and lenses from which to look at how women specifically are represented in our industry, right? So that's really what we want to get into here and talk about some of the challenges that maybe the three of us have specifically faced, but the challenges in general that we face as women in this industry. So Lindsey, I'll come back to you, and let's just start digging in here a little bit with some of the challenges that maybe you've experienced in your different roles in the fitness industry. And, from a business side of things, that perspective that you bring, what are some of the challenges that we're seeing as women?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to tell the audience as they listen to, I fully plan on sharing the problems and some solutions. So I think it's important today that we set the tone that it is important to be heard and there is a way. So, some of the things that I have encountered, and let me just say this too, it took me about 15 years to feel comfortable enough to confront some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to put it out there that naming them is such a big part of why we're having this conversation, because it can become unconscious almost. So I'll give an example of that. When I would go into a health club to consult on programming, what outfit I chose to wear, how I presented myself, and the invisible barrier I knew I was going to have to overcome if I was meeting with a male operator.
Yep.
So just being, if I wore my hair up or if I wore my hair down, if I chose to wear lipstick, if I wore heels, and just how crappy it is that that in my dialogue, there was an unconscious programming of either wanting to be taken seriously And so choosing to button my blouse up as high as I could so that his eyes were focused here, it just to name that, it kind of sucks to think about that instead of just wearing what I want to wear. So there's that. And then there's also, gosh, I feel sad even just saying that, but like literally for years of my career, being in a certain state and knowing and just saying, like, if I knew if I dialed up my makeup when I was in Oklahoma, that I would get a better response. And just knowing, like, gosh dang it, it sucks that I even had that as part of, like, I feel sad that in my late 20s, I was overcoming so much of that just to have a conversation about someone's business. And then still would be sitting in the office and get comments like, well, you sure are pretty to know so much about group fitness.
Ugh.
And just to be like, really? Did you need to say that? Oh, it looks like you're married. That's great. How's your, just things of like, what makes you think it's okay to say that to me? Like, we're talking about your group fitness attendance. So there's circumstances like that. And then also, and this isn't by any means a diss on any organization or anything. These are cultural norms we're talking about, right? This pans way beyond fitness. But these are the environments that I was in. Another example is being part of an organization where I was working a trade show booth, and the booth would be staffed with men and women. And I would be given a shirt or an outfit to wear. And almost never was it okay for me to wear tennis shoes. I needed to wear heels, and my male counterpart was going to wear whatever he was going to wear. Maybe he got, and then just to hear him crab about wearing dress shoes and how painful they hurt his feet, but they were flats. So I think just even like standing there in heels for 8 hours a day, trying to look a certain way, and how much our outward appearance plays into the way that we're perceived, the things we have to overcome right away. God forbid you're good looking, because then it gets even harder, and just naming that without feeling bad about it, right? So I think those are a couple of examples of, fast forward now, I feel confident enough to have the conversation of, I love the way I look in heels too. I'm not going to stand in your booth for 8 hours and wear them. Okay. And to say that on my behalf. 10 years ago, I was not confident enough to say that. I was not confident enough to say back to someone in a meeting setting, hey, eyes up here. And just disrupt the conversation, and to be seen as inappropriate, to just let that go. So those are a couple of examples of what we unfortunately, in my experience, just take as part of how it goes.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely feel you on those examples. A couple of them for sure have been my experience too. And Megan, I want to talk to you specifically too. You and I have had.
Did we lose audio?
Oh.
Did I lose audio?
I don't think
We can
so.
hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? I
You're
can't hear you. Okay. Are we back? Okay, what was the question, Jackie? You cut out for just a second.
Yeah, can you hear me now, Megan?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, so in just talking about the challenges that we face, right, in the industry, and Lindsay's pinpointed a few of them just based on what our physical appearance is like. I just love to hear your take and some of the challenges that you faced. And you and I have had this conversation around your experience as a person of color in the industry, as well as a woman. So
yes.
Anything that you want to share there?
I think there's an added weight as far as women on, like we said, on appearance, especially as a personal trainer and a group fitness instructor. Body image. I actually was a certified personal trainer for over a year before I even told people. And I didn't even tell people. It got to a point where I waited for people to ask me. And it got to a point where I had to look a certain way in order to be a personal trainer. And I think that's weighed more on women than on men. and our credentials are based on how we appear and how we look. I think that's been the hardest part, especially as a bodybuilder. I have a lot of body image. A lot of people expect me to look like my stage weight, which is 25 pounds less than my walking around weight. So when they meet me in person, when they know I'm a bodybuilder, they're like, wait a second. I thought you were a bodybuilder, or I thought you were a trainer, or, you know, you get comments all the time, like, you need it when you come down, you need to stay lean because you're a personal trainer and that's your billboard. I think a lot of weight is put on that. And even more as a Black woman in the big box gyms, you kind of get cast in certain areas of fitness that a lot of the men don't have to deal with. Even as a group fitness instructor, if I walk into a gym, they're gonna assume that I'm a Zumba instructor. I am not a Zumba instructor. I'm a cycle instructor, or I'm an aquafit instructor. I get cast into certain niches that I feel like, not only as a woman, but as a Black woman, is a barrier that needs to be broke and expanded on. And it's a struggle that I think a lot of women and a lot of Black, as far as the culture, as long as we continue to run into. I know we've progressed, but there's still something that we need to address going forward.
Yeah, and Megan, you're like coming into the next part of our conversation, which is that representation of women, of Black women, of people of color in general, of all different types of people throughout the industry, and just having a little bit of a better representation for us. So let's talk about that just a little bit. I'll start, I guess, with this one, because in my earlier part of my career, as I said, I was an athlete in college. And then for part of that time while I was in college, I really got into the strength and conditioning field and thought that was the direction that I wanted to go. And as it turns out, that's a really tough place to be when you're a woman, is in a strength and conditioning room with everyone else who was male and at least 15 years older than me. That was a tough place to be. And I was not taken seriously at all. Even if I did know, because I was in school at the time, learning all this great exercise science and learning all of the information that is supposed to be applied to these athletes. Right now, I'm learning all the new stuff. And I can tell you that there's a problem here. That wasn't something that was heard from me. I was not being heard, for sure. So that's been part of my experience from the strength and conditioning side of things. But from a representation standpoint, it's very rare, even now, which is many years, more than a decade later, for women to be represented in strength and conditioning. It's getting better, but it's still, very much out of the norm for a woman to be a strength and conditioning coach in a collegiate setting. Right. So let's talk a little bit more about that representation. Lindsey, in your role from a business perspective, what's your take on representation for women?
Yeah, gosh, it's interesting. So one of the things that is so important about our industry is to reflect on all the different ways to be in fitness. And this is one of the things that because I've gotten the chance to work on the business side, in the education solution side, I've worked in clubs, and then I've worked from a consultant standpoint with other providers making equipment. I've gotten to see how all these pieces fit together, but yet so many times folks that work in clubs don't know they have access to career paths in organizations like even ACE or WIFA or Star Trek Fitness or Life Fitness. Like, there's so many career paths in our industry that don't intersect unless someone makes that connection for an individual. Mm-hmm. So for instance, a group fitness instructor could believe for years that they have to teach a lot of classes to make a living. Whereas if they were coached to apply to be a sales rep for an equipment company, they could still potentially teach 2 classes a week, but make a full-time living selling equipment to other clubs like the one they work in. but a lot of folks don't know to connect those dots. So I think part of representation is creating opportunities to understand those things, because if we don't help each other see all the different ways to be in the industry, it's very hard to generate representation. And I think women in particular, and this, I do not like this fact about the industry, but whether it's personal training or group fitness, it gets coined as hobby-ish. And women in particular end up taking on those roles and then finding themselves in partnerships where they have a provider. And so I think that there's a certain element where they get taken advantage of because they don't have to make as much. And this is just their passion project. It's like, but why wouldn't they? Why are we not paying them for their prep time? Why are we not paying them for, everything that goes in? They should get an outfit stipend if they're going to match people in the DVD. There's so many elements to it, right? And then moreover, if you connect them to a different part of the industry, there might be an opportunity there that they weren't even aware of. And so part of representation is creating opportunity. And then the people that have been in roles for a really long time to look at where there's opportunities to promote or hire or diversify their teams, where they are holding tightly to opportunities instead of opening themselves up to diversity and opportunity. So a lot of times it means someone resigning and giving their seat to a woman, specifically a woman of color, to diversify their organization. And that's where people really don't want to talk about it, because that means that opportunities start to shift. And in my opinion, it just means it's time. And moreover, there's enough opportunity to go around. So if you think from that place, more than likely, a new opportunity is going to be created. Those are my thoughts on the topic.
Yeah. Great points. Megan, you and I are both like, and
yes.
yes.
Yes, you hit
So
all the points. Yes.
Go ahead, Megan. Yeah.
Honestly, when this session was presented to me, and they asked me if I knew about Women in Fitness Association, I was like, I have no clue about, and I've been trying to break out of that group fitness, personal training, I want to say hamster wheel, and if you go into a big box gym, that's where you see most of the female trainers. We're group fitness instructors. Yeah. Very rarely do you see very many personal trainers that are doing really well as a female, or even in upper management at these gyms. And I've been wrapping my brain around it because I'm getting older. I know I can't teach 10 classes a week and be on that hamster wheel as far as options to move beyond just group fitness. Even with working with male colleagues, you get into a role where you're the assistant. And people will go to my male counterpart as being the boss, and I'm either the assistant or the discounted personal training version. And I think putting women in a place where they can win and basically branch out, or giving us opportunities like ACE presenting things like this and bringing forth associations like Women in Fitness is a great way to give that knowledge and open those doors for a lot of the women that are out here basically on the ground floor and breaking that glass ceiling.
Right. We're all about breaking the glass ceilings. That's right. And to both of your points, we're talking about these different paths and having the opportunity and sort of helping to help people take their blinders off and sort of clean the lens and go, there's some different things that I'm seeing here. From my perspective, from the education side of things, when I first got into this industry, that wasn't something I even thought that I could do. Teaching was something that my mom did, and I was going to be a personal trainer or strength coach, and kind of just be, like you said, Megan, on the ground floor and the ground level. And for me, there came a time when I couldn't do that anymore. I was on the hamster wheel, and it did become very draining. And there is a shift that has to happen if you want to stay in this industry that we know people get into because it's a passion. and because we love it so much. So the education side for me was this different route that, in all honesty, I was in the right place at the right time to kind of take that step forward into it. But I think it is, like you were saying, Lindsey, an important piece to help people understand that when they're starting out, there are all of these different places and directions that you can go, and to just helping other women be thinking about what those could be for them in their future. So, you know, that's where we want to get to with this. Lindsey, like you said, we want to talk about some of the solutions that we have, and helping to lift other women up in this industry. So we'll talk about some of the advice for other women who are getting into this industry. Maybe they've been in it for a long time and they're feeling, Megan, like you and I have sort of alluded to, like, okay, I'm on this, what's the next thing? So what advice would we like to share with other women in the industry for helping them to move forward in their career, or find something in this industry that's just a little bit of a different direction that still keeps them passionate about what they do? Lindsey, do you want to start?
Yeah. Oh, what a privilege to get to answer this question. So, and this is my belief system here, so go with me for just a minute. I think there's one step right before you start to identify the job, and it's the internal work of, why am I on the planet? Why did I wake up this morning? What's my deeper purpose and why? And once, if you've gotten the chance to do some work like that, from my experience, is it creates this internal metrodome with the universe where you wake up and you're not dependent on your circumstances for making you feel good. It comes internally. And there's one of the big staple items within WIFA is this work, so that, and we call it the soft skills, but it's, as my counterpart Jen likes to say, it's the chop wood, carry water part of our day to day. It's, I wake up in the morning, and even if I have toddlers hanging off of me, I still close my eyes for a few minutes and meditate, even if I'm, you know, making breakfast for little people or whatever it is that organizes your day. You've got to start with yourself and fill your cup first. So new to the industry or feeling lost, go there first and stop looking externally for a job title or number of classes a week to define your purpose, because the world needs you to show up for the unique reason you're here. So that's groundwork. Then after that, it's like, okay, well, I'm on the planet because fill in the blank, and then you can start lining yourself up with a function. And I want to also say, if you find a class format that you love teaching, we'll use as an example, don't then just teach that class 10 times a week and try to make that how you maximize income, because that's going to kill your body long term. And it's not sustainable for, and this is my opinion, again, my opinion, it's also not sustainable for the lifestyle that you may want. Let's say you're a parent, or you're in a co-parenting circumstance, or you have stepchildren, or whatever your dynamic is. It could just be even a pet. The way that your day starts to get organized, and the, God forbid, injury prevention, it's just not quite set up to support success, both financially and from a life balance standpoint. However, if you and your partner, or you yourself, go, okay, I want to make $45,000 a year. You do the math, that's a lot of classes. Please don't take that route, but you want to teach twice a week. And you know that one of your skill sets, a really good exercise that you can do, is you can write down all the things that are skills you have that you could potentially get paid to do. And then there's all different ways to align outcomes with that. I would even encourage you, if you can find a part-time administrative role, like where you're a virtual assistant online, you can even go on a Fiverr or an Upwork or a site like that and freelance at $20 an hour and make your main income, and then teach a couple of times a week. And then hashtag health clubs in the meantime. Let's get organized and pay people what they're worth. Because if you made $100 an hour for a class, like I'd like people to, then you don't have to teach as many classes and you're paid accordingly, right? So, and here's a big caveat to all of this is, if it comes down to create your life the people that matter most to you, your family, the things that you know enrich you. And then you work your work around it. And so when you do it like that, it liberates all kinds of opportunities. And it's, for me, it's always been less about like going and finding a job that I feel passionate about. It's more about, why am I passionate about being on the planet? And then align activities with that allow me to express it. Like this, for me, I feel so alive in this moment, talking to you all and sharing my heart. The other day when our website crashed and I was on IT with GoDaddy for like 6 hours, that like kind of took my soul. But I have to do things like that sometimes too, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that you can't just also, if you have a day like that, go, it's over, I need to retire, just stay focused on what lights you up like a Christmas tree and go for those moments. But if you start internally first, then you go, oh, okay. And then you get some organization like WIFA, where you get a bunch of people in a room that are willing to help each other, and you start expressing what you want to do. And they go, oh, I know somebody, let's get you connected. And then the opportunities start coming.
That's right. Yes, I love your analogy about filling your own cup and finding what lights you up like a Christmas tree. We have to keep doing those things. And Megan, let's talk about what your advice is for women getting into the industry, or maybe again feeling like they were on a little bit of a hamster wheel, so to speak, because your path has been different than Lindsay's and mine. And I think you just have some great thoughts to share here.
Honestly, I'm going to piggyback on exactly what Lindsay said. Find what you love and hold on to that, like your goal, your purpose, and don't lose sight of that. I mean, it will change. It'll grow. Like we said, our businesses are like children. They grow, they change, they create different personalities, they evolve. But at the end of the day, your core values, hold on to those. And kind of just keep moving every day and work on yourself first. You've got to be whole first, just like she said, before you can help somebody else. I mean, the healthcare field is about helping other people. That is our end goal. But you got to be whole yourself before you can help and assist other people. So honestly, exactly what Lindsay said, it's along the same lines. Find what you love, find what you're good at, and continue doing that and hold on to that tight.
Yeah, great. We have just a few minutes here, and I want to make sure that we talk a little bit more about these solutions for women in the industry and what our industry as a whole can do better to support women, to support the industry. I think I'm gonna venture out on a limb, but I don't think it's a pretty sturdy limb here when I'm gonna say that I think if we lift women up in this industry, the industry as a whole gets better, right? So let's talk about how we can do that in our world right now. Lindsay.
Oh, okay. Gosh, I'm gonna narrow it down to a couple so I don't talk to you. So the first thing is do your deep work, and what Megan and I are talking about. And I want to say the first, and this goes for people leading organizations, people soul searching, it doesn't matter where you are in your career, because all of the messy stuff that happens, especially in companies when people are mistreated or whatever, usually comes from a hurting person that's inadvertently hurting other people because of their own stuff. So if we can clean up our own stuff first, everybody, then we can then pour out. So if you're in any type of a leadership role, maybe evaluate where you have blind spots internally, where you are not practicing true equity, and really look at where you are inadvertently not creating opportunities where you could be. And I'll give an example of that. We live in a world that assumes after children are born that there's like somebody available to be the parent. And so there's that other person becomes totally available to give 8-hour blocks of time to work environments. And that's, unless you have a whole person you're paying or that's home being that person, it's actually not a world that exists. And so partnering with mothers to either do, and fathers, any type of caregiver, someone that is doing their best to manage childcare, but also be available for work, create a working block scenario. So what we've done at WIFA is we've acknowledged, like, there's 24 hours in a day. You don't have to work from 8 to 5. Maybe get 4 hours of childcare in the mornings and have all your calls, be with your kids in the afternoon, sign back on at 6 p.m. and work till 10, and to make that totally normal and okay. Because otherwise, how do you start to create new norms to consider that? And then moreover, while you're at it, so those in leadership, start to think about your own internal policies. And then if you're not, and you want to have a courageous conversation like that, partner with a mentor, or even just reach out to myself or WIFA and say, how do I start to have a conversation like that? I know the policy exists elsewhere. So yeah, that would be a skill. And then to the soft skills that I was talking about, you don't just come by those. Like it takes, for me, it's been a couple decades of really intense work to get to that. But try to find some resources that can get you started. So for instance, and I'm just totally going to plug WIFA here, but we have a program called LEAD, and it's a 13-week deep dive that lets you get in touch with your why and your purpose. And the whole course was designed from a place of, there really wasn't somewhere for women in fitness to go and talk vulnerably with a partner about some of the old programming in their minds that was deterring them for asking for their worth or asking for more money or getting advocacy. And so to defrag that old stuff and then do some really fun personality stuff like Enneagram work and a personal branding presentation that they can use in their career too. And we're a nonprofit, so everything is super reasonably priced because it's supposed to be. And so work like that, because it's really easy to hear somebody like me and Megan be like, go do the deep work. And we'll be like, where do we even start with that? You know? And if you don't want to sign up for LEAD, download little apps like 5-minute journal and just start doing everyday gratitude practices. That starts to get you thinking in a new way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are great tips. And I love your comment around, if you are in a leadership role already, really doing that self-evaluation to understand where some of those blind spots are and biases that we all have, and how they might be showing up for the people that you are leading. So Megan, let's hear from you a little bit about, from your perspective as somebody that is a little bit more client facing, generally speaking, what can the industry, our health and fitness industry, do better to support women?
I think highlighting real women more often. I know a lot of the businesses, corporations like to highlight celebrities and put an unrealistic goal on women as far as within the industry, body goals, business goals, things of that nature. I think highlighting real women that are doing the work more often, and highlighting organizations that are putting real women first, and creating avenues to empower those women and creating that space for those women to evolve and move forward and reach more people. I think also like WIFA, finding companies and associations that will challenge not only gender, but cultural barriers within the industry. ACE is doing a very good job, like with this chat, putting organizations and women in the forefront, real women that are doing the work at ground zero, and kind of just helping them have an avenue to reach out, and highlighting corporations that will help these women succeed within the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great points. I think, like you mentioned, Megan, having that representation and being able to see yourself in the industry that you love and that you want to be a part of and that you feel is your passion, is a really important piece of wanting to stay in it and continuing to be a passion for you. So if we can support groups like WIFA, if we can have organizations like ACE that are doing those things of supporting women and lifting them up and showing real people, like you mentioned, Megan, showing real people who are doing the work, that I think will definitely be a nice step in the direction that we want to go, right? Maybe not the only step, hopefully, but a first step and a good one to keep moving forward with. So we're just coming to the end of our time here, ladies, but I want to give you both the space to say any final words about the fitness industry in general, your the space and the role that you have in the fitness industry and where we maybe want to go from here. Lindsey?
Oh, goodness. Well, first and foremost, if you can relate to anything that we've talked about today, just know that we see you and that you have a voice, and that if you want someone to talk to and you want to feel heard, specifically, if you're a woman in fitness, please, reach out to WIFA. That's why we exist. And thank you for ACE for giving us this platform. We're still a relatively new group and we're just starting to get momentum so that, other people can know we exist and that we're a resource. And beyond just not being alone, just know that this is a really magical industry and new opportunities create themselves every single day. And even though COVID and the climate we've been working in for the last year plus has felt scary and vulnerable, it also, on the other side of it, I believe is going to really empower specifically fit pros to be part of the next wave of solution. And so don't lose hope and don't lose momentum. Just know that there's people out there working tenaciously to create new opportunities for fitness pros so that we can be the solution from a health crisis standpoint of what's going on and to be seen in that light. So just to provide some hope too, that it's going to be okay.
I believe that too, Lindsey. Thank you. Megan, any final words that you want to share?
I think honestly, as far as final words, definitely, follow your heart as far as in fitness and in life. As a woman in the industry, there's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be hurdles to hop, but there's also women that are out here able to help. Seek out those people. Like I said, with ACE, with WIFA, this is a great avenue in order to find other like-minded women that can help you out in your ventures and in your journey. It's a journey. Things change all the time, as we've learned over the last year. Fitness is changing, so just keep those people in the back of your mind. Keep them in your circle, and just keep working towards your goals. Honestly, that's all I.
Thanks, Megan. Thank you both. I want to just piggyback on what you're both sharing here, that we have an opportunity as health and fitness professionals to graciously be in a position to help other people. We do have to make sure that we are filling our own cup, as we mentioned earlier, so that we can do that in an effective way. But I also believe, as we've all mentioned here, that in the last year plus, where our industry has changed so much, that we have a very special opportunity, and this pendulum will swing back up to where our world, our health and fitness world, is going to be a really great place to still be involved in. And so I would just also encourage everybody that is watching and listening, if you're in this industry now and just kind of curious where things might be going, they from the perspective of the American Council on Exercise, my own personal perspective, specifically, this industry will keep going, and it's going to be very, very important for us as we keep moving forward. So we'll keep lifting each other up as women in the industry. And Lindsey Rainwater from the Women in Fitness Association, once again, thank you very much for joining us today, as well as Megan Gamble, owner of PowerFit Bootcamp. Thank you both. Appreciate your time. We'll see you all later.
Thank you.